Perfect.
Welcome, Jenny, to the Creating Meaningful Work podcast. So happy to have you here.
Yay, I'm so excited to be here.
Now, what time is it in Kenya where you are located?
Well, it's late. I feel like I meet everybody really late. It is almost 10:30 p.m. here. It's weird. I used to be a morning person, then I had kids, and then I'm like forced to be a morning person. So I've become a night owl I don't know, is your husband a night owl? My husband was a night owl. I was a morning person. And then I have adapted more to him, but also with work and life circumstances, I'm just always up. So
Right, because you work with so many people in the States, and so your
yeah.
time zone works well for you to be at night when it's like 11, almost 11:30 my time AM.
Yeah, I bring in
AM.
I bring in most early mornings in the beginning of the week. I do have a healthy balance, guys. People rave about me, but I don't mind staying up late. I've become that night owl.
I think there's a lot of like shoulds around, work day and schedule and, oh, you should do this and you should do that. And, it's like, you just got to do what works best for you. And if it feels good to you and your body, then great. It's not going to be the same for everyone. So
Exactly.
anyways, I would love to dive in and talk to you a little bit about who you are. For those who are listening who are not familiar with you, tell us a little bit about who you are and the work that you do with Imani. And
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
work that you do in general, because I know you do so many things. So tell us about yourself.
Yeah. So the biggest hat that I wear that most people know me for is being the founder and CEO of Imani Collective. So this year we're excited and I will be a broken record throughout this whole year, but we are celebrating our 10 years. So it's been a decade of building Imani Collective, growing it and just seeing it flourish. A lot of ups and downs and the whole journey of being an entrepreneur, but especially a social entrepreneur. So we are a collective of over 170 artisans currently. We continue to grow in that and have 3 locations in Kenya and have several global partnerships that we're building into this year. So it's a joy for me to develop that home decor brand. At the same time, I do live in Mombasa, Kenya. I think I selfishly live here because my team is amazing. I'm not in the business anymore. I definitely get to vision and work on it. But we live in Kenya. I'm a mom. I'm a wife. I have 3 young kids. So I'm a mother. My husband works with street youth. So I'm also a mother to about 30 street boys that we work with and help get off the streets through drug rehabilitation and discipleship and all of that. But another hat I wear, as you know, is coaching and mentoring and doing events and different things for specifically the social impact space. So I did start the School of Ethical Impact a couple years ago, and we developed that into being a resource, and this year it's transitioning into being free resources for entrepreneurs or anyone starting a business that wants to do impact. That's why, I just have been a part of the LO community since 2016 and love to have been a part of my journey and be a part of just growing my journey and being a part of this community and being around people doing meaningful work because it's just so aligned. So get to do a lot of that. And then of course, there is a part of my life that people know me as Dr. Jenny Nuccio, and I am a professor and work in a social work department and developing their global engagement. So I'm just full of all the things. Oh, and I guess I'll wear the hat of author this year as I have a book launching this year as well. So
Yeah, you
that's
do.
fun.
And was it 2022 that you got your doctorate and you became Dr. Jenny Nuccio?
Yes, the beginning
Congrats.
of 2022. Yeah.
Congrats.
So I've now fully accepted that title. At first it was weird, but I'm like, yeah. Call me Dr. Jen, Dr. Nuccio. I like it.
Yeah, own it. I love that. Amazing. So I'm curious. Tell me, so you mentioned, you have a thriving team that is doing the work in Kenya, but yet you are still you as an American, I should say, you're choosing to live in Kenya with your family and your 3 kids. Can you talk to me a little bit about that decision and what has made you as a family decide to do life there in Kenya?
Yeah, when I first came to Kenya, it was specifically on a mission trip, a service trip, and I saw a lot of I'll talk a lot about this in my book too, of Let It Be Wild, but I saw a lot of disparity, and where I found over the years and the most, I guess, aligned in my spirit and how to build something was to do it together. I saw a lot of people trying to work on something and then separate or segment themselves. You see a lot of people who do these quick fixes or band-aid solutions, especially in the nonprofit space, and they try to do it at a distance, right? It's like, oh, I'm the foreigner. I just want to help. I want to have this feel good. And I'm not saying that those trips are not bad. That those trips aren't bad per se. It's the intention behind it. Why are we showing up in those communities, and do they actually need us to be there? And that's a hard question to ask. Like, do they actually need us to be there? And because what I learned, and especially with our women, that some of the first 16 women that we started with are still with us today, and have grown immensely. And they were the ones that had hope in their eyes. They were the ones that were fully capable of the dream, and they are the ones that developed it. And when I wanted to give up, they were the ones that picked me back up, right? To keep leading the vision and be a part of that. And so for me, choosing to stay here is to be immersed and to build something together, to be able to again, not just throw my ideas onto them and them run with it. No, like, we anything and everything we do. I now have I now have a team of leaders, of 23 leaders that I sit with every Monday. Kenyan leaders, that doesn't include my stateside staff. So, and these people are amazing, and their ideas and what they bring to the table. And so I choose to do work with them and be with them, and be immersed in the community. When I first started Imani, I lived out in the village intentionally so that I wasn't separating myself from the women who were going to be the foundation. I call them the pioneers of Imani. I wanted to learn from them just as they were learning from me. And so as a family, and the other, things that we're involved in our boys' lives, and being their family, we choose to have an open door policy at our home, and to have that attitude of community, and that we're standing right beside you. It was interesting in the pandemic because a lot of people who were either expat community or the missionary community or whatever, however, and whatever space they were in, but they were foreigners that were in Kenya. A lot of people left for good reason, right? Or because there was a lot of unknowns in the beginning of 2020. And that was a big question that Sean, my husband, and I asked, like, well, what should we do? And so we chose to stay throughout that time. One, I was very pregnant during that time, but
I
two,
remember.
yeah, which is crazy. But two, to be beside our people, like, this is family in our community. And for us, again, for us to leave, and we were very prayerful about this, but for us to leave it, it almost felt like a privilege, right? Of like, oh, well, we can step out of this situation. And we've always come at it with, we're doing this life together. And so that is a joy for me to keep being here. Again, like I say, sometimes just out of selfish desire, but also it's really beautiful for my kids and my family to be able to grow up with a global perspective, to be able to have those touch points, because I can already see the difference, in such young spirits, and I'm excited to see how they lead generations, to come.
It's so awesome. Um, would love to hear your story, your founding story of starting Imani. I know you've gone through highs and lows as you've built this brand, as all entrepreneurs have. But can you tell us a little bit about how this got started, and kind of how you've taken it through over the last 10 years? Also, congrats on that as well.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, so it started in 2009. So to me, it's been longer. When I'm like, yes, 10 years, I'm like, oh gosh, I feel like, it's just been so much longer. I'm sure with Yellow too, and the development of the idea to actually the launch, it's just like there's progression to that. And so
Absolutely.
started when I came in 2009, and just having the aha moments of, again, like I said, the disparity, what's happening here, but that people weren't asking what they wanted. And I think that's what really rubbed me the wrong way is I was seeing all of this good, well, intended to be good, that was actually hurting communities because people were not asking communities. And in a couple of years ago in the school, when we developed the School of Ethical Impact, we kind of coined the term radically listening. And I really believe in that when you're radically listening, it's active listening, right? We're listening, we're not listening to hear what we want, but we are shutting off all those thoughts and we're listening to be intentional with the people in front of us and in what actually they need and they want. And so I think from that young age, I started that because I've spent a third, I'm 30, will be 33 this year. So I've spent a third of my life in Kenya and overseas, a significant amount of time here, and my own self has developed into more of a relational based person and what that looks like and how to again be collaborative with others, how to be in community with others. But it started back in 2009 and asking those questions. And so yeah, I just saw the mama struggling. I saw kids were being sent back from school. I was asking why. Fast forward, I mean, it took me many years of just pursual from God and where I was going and a lot of prayer, meditation. I did not want to live in Kenya. So most people have like this grandeur, like I had this vision. I know I was going to be there. This is what I would do the rest of my life. No, I had an amazing life set up in the States. I was like director of this like really cool, like director of marketing. I was not equipped to be this, but I got this. This was not my background. My background is leadership. So you over there who have like a creative mind, I'm like, what am I doing in this role? But I got this role in this really cool, like sustainable bike company. Just land a good gig. I was making really good money, finishing my graduate program, my master's at that time. I had an amazing friend group. And I felt at that point, like it was really, I had these two platters in front of me. Like I was living the dream that my family and what I actually grew up wanting, right? I was living that and I felt really good in that space. I was also, fun fact, a CrossFit coach, and it was like such a weird
I
life I was
didn't
living.
know
Like,
this.
yes,
CrossFit. Wow.
I know. I should show you my shoulders back then. Now that is not what's here, but it was like an alternative life. I look back and I'm like, wow, that's crazy. At the same time, I was traveling all over. I was going on doing research in Trinidad and Tobago, visiting Costa Rica. I was going back to Kenya every year. So I was still having those touch points. And every time I would end up in Kenya, there was just this piece that resonated through my body that, oh, this is where I'm supposed to be. But at that point, I had no plan and no strategy and no direction. But it was as if I had these two pieces in front of me. I had started the nonprofit already in 2011, and it was growing into, again, starting this. We had the idea of starting this training program for these women that I kept building relationships with every year. And my board of directors at that time said, well, Jenny, like if anybody's going to build it, it's going to be you. It's in your head. It's your vision with these women. So you need to spend a significant amount of time there. And I refused, like, I did not want to do that. But my board, which were good friends at the time, literally knew me. So they like got a piece of paper. They wrote out like, Jenny will spend at least 6 months in Kenya and put a signature line. And they were like,
Oh my
you will
goodness.
sign this paper. And I was like, oh my gosh. So I said, there's one thing left. I cannot sign this paper. I still am finishing my graduate. Like I always had to come back to like finish my courses, right? We do not have this excuse anymore because online courses, but I always had to come back to finish. So I went to my dean at that time and I was like, hey, like I'm supposed to be in Kenya for this long, wanting him to say, oh, like you can't because you have this course. And he's like, oh, well, look at this. These 9 hours that you need to take, all of these are offered online now. And I was like, you have to be kidding me. Because at this time, this was like before any of that was like really a regular
Right. That was a
thing,
big
right?
deal to have an online offering.
Right. E-learning at that time was like very edgy, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, what do you mean online and how am I going to do that? But completely green light. Like it was like God was saying, you need to be there. And so I went back to my board and I was like, well, I guess I'll sign the paper. But what was crazy is I moved there, sold everything, left a box in my mom's house, moved there with just that money, which was not strategic at all. And that's why I coach on a lot of strategy and like financial planning, because I ran out of money within like 6 months. I was so
Mm.
not prepared for what I was about to do.
Mhm.
But I moved there, and that whole I ended up being there for 7 months before I came back, because I met a man and got married. So that's a whole nother story. But yeah, I was there for 7 months and finishing my master's. Crazy enough, I would travel back and forth from the village. I'd find a cyber cafe to turn in stuff. It was wild. But that's how I ended up in Kenya. And then again, met my husband and never left and built some money. That's where we are
Wow.
today.
Wow. So you're in Kenya, that 7 months is up. What happens after that? Like how did you start making the products, and tell us what
Yeah.
happens
Well,
next?
I realized really quickly that, I started this training to provide a skill so that these women could find a job. Well, the location with our original women is literally in the middle of nowhere. So I did not think of like, oh, well, where are they going to find a job? Um, Again, very like in the now of like, I'm doing this. I was not proactively thinking. So I was like, okay, well, I guess we're going to have to provide that job. And even at that point of saying, I guess we're going to have to provide that job, I wasn't thinking of a product line. I wasn't, I was like, we're just going to continue to train them until they're developed, I guess. I just had no strategy at that point. I had promised them from the beginning, though, that in the training, they would receive a monthly stipend. They would have a regular stipend so that it was consistent. So that has stayed true from the very beginning of Imani. We do consistent monthly salaries. We pay above minimum wage. We give bonuses. We really come around our artisans in that way, because I truly believe in consistent salary so that they can plan, so that they have steady income, that it's not based on per piece or what our sales income is or any of that, that they feel solid. So I always committed to that. Now in the beginning, I knew that we had to create, some type of sustainability. We started making like extremely crappy totes. I'm telling you, I had no idea about fabric. The first fabric I ever chose was this like blotchy red striped fabric that when I actually was caught in a rainstorm in Mombasa, it bled all over my white shirt.
Oh
Like that's how
no.
like that's how like if you ever bought the first product of Imani Collective back in 2015 and you have ruined shirts for us, I like am so grateful for you because we
Man, I
sold a
wish.
lot of those totes.
I feel like those would be like iconic now and worth more because it's like the original, the
I
OG ones
have
that will
I
stain
have
your
the
shirt.
Right. I have actually a tote. We had a red and a blue, and I have a blue tote framed at my mom's house, actually, like the first like
Yes.
tote. And
That's amazing.
it is such a thing to look at every time I like go to my mom's house. I'm like, oh, that's such a thing. But
I love it.
yeah, so over times, I really believed we started as like a craft business kind of, and I hate saying that now, like crafty and think, but we bootstrapped. When people ask me about shipping, we did all of that, just like you're talking about, put it in the suitcases, figured it out, sold it to small fairs or churches. Like I was at everything and anything I could be at. And then I realized this is not sustainable. I'm tired. I'm burnout. I'm not going to do this.
Mhm.
We were invited into the New York Now show in 2016, which is a large wholesale trade show. And we were asked to be in the artist and handmade section. And we actually got a sponsor to take care of all the expenses. I had absolutely no idea what I was walking into. No idea. I did not know people like did professional booths back then. I did not know anything. I walked in, I had shipped IKEA furniture, guys, to the Javits Center. I put it together. I had a 4-month-old son at that time. It was bananas. I
Mhm.
look back at that booth and I'm like, wow, I'm proud of you, Jenny, for showing up like that. But how embarrassing, but I'm proud of you for just like being there.
Mhm.
But I learned a lot at that show. We made out of 4 days of being on that show, we literally made like 4 orders. It was the biggest, still to this day, one of the biggest financial fails of Imani. And it was at that point that I knew we either need to shut down or we need to change. And we knew we had an amazing story. And I would say that was our biggest pivot point. I hired my first person in the States, Haley. She was our lead designer, who still is with us today and helps with trend forecasting and how we're meeting with our customers. But I told her, I'm going to give you this baby of mine. Um, I have the people here on the ground. You have the mind for it. I really need you to wear this hat. And she helped me rebrand the whole what we were as Imani, and we rebranded to what we are now as Imani Collective and what you see. And it's just been up from there. It still has been very challenging. Still many days where I am like, what the hell am I doing? Or want to close my door. I would say we are now past that hump a bit, but in that growth, in that pivot, in that change, in that rebrand, in those first 3 to 4 years of that rebrand, it was hard. It was hard. But I'm just so thankful that we grew as a team in a very creative way. And I didn't give up. You know, I asked myself, how can we be competitive? In kind of the secular space, not just in this like artisan, just, I didn't want to just be artisan crafts, you know, like that's, yes, that's what we are. We're artisan and handmade. But I wanted to compete and look like what you would find on the Target shelves, look like what, you know, what you would pick up yeah, just in a regular store. And those are beautiful conversations that we're in this year in those types of stores and things like that. But yeah, so that's kind of the growth. And where we got here today a little bit in a very quick nutshell.
Well, what I love about that story is that you were able to kind of see the gap between like, okay, this is a struggle that we are experiencing. The data shows it. You know, we got 4 orders in this 4-day experience. So where's the gap? And you brought someone on who had different skill sets than you, and it worked and things changed. Whereas I think it's really easy when things don't work out to just think, oh, I'm doing like I failed or I'm doing something wrong, or, you know, people just must not like me or whatever it is, versus saying, all right, here are the options. Here's what we need to get real about and bring someone on board to help those things happen. So I love that story because I think it really just shows you being able to know your strengths,
and that's hard, you
and
know,
bring
that's
someone
hard.
else on.
Exactly. The strengths is so important. I just did a strengths finder, you know, Clifton strengths finder. I'm in the process of actually getting certified in it because I use it so much.
Really?
I use it
Amazing.
so much.
Yeah.
Yes. I've been using it for the last 15, 16 years. And I just did a workshop with our team here. And it was like a aha moment for them over this last weekend of like all of our team in Kenya, these leaders realizing their innate strengths, what those talents are inside of them. And I think that's what's scary is it's like we're raised in a culture, right? Where we're like, oh, we need to work on this and work on this. But if we just keep pushing into our strengths and developing that, like we're only going to become more excellent. So we need to collaborate and align ourselves with the right people. And that's scary to let people in and to be vulnerable in that way. And even doing that first step for me, for Imani Collective is hard because the first thing, this is so silly, but the first thing she said to me is, okay, Jenny, we're going to delete your whole Instagram. And I cried because that was like my whole history, right? It was like, well, that's my story. Those are my personal pictures. And she was like, but it's not a brand. And I was like, what? Like I had no idea about branding, right? This is me. And it like took me a whole week or more. I was like, I gotta get my crap together. Figure this out.
Well, because it is so tied to you as a person. And I think as a founder, that's a struggle. Is like, this is also an extension of who I am. You're just going to delete me from this thing. Yeah, I can totally see that being hard.
Yeah. So we have to, in our journeys, I think we have to get to a place where we're allowing people to come in and keep us accountable. And we're okay with being vulnerable and letting people into something that we're so passionate, especially if you're the founder, because that is your baby. You created it. And you have to be willing to continue to allow people into it and to teach you. And it might change in a different direction than what you ever expected, but it will be good because you're aligning yourselves with people who have strengths, and it's only going to leverage you forward in a better way. And that's what I've learned over the last 10 years in that.
So you work a lot with other business owners and artisan-based brands. What are some challenges that you consistently see coming up in your work with these founders and these businesses?
So this was also based a lot of my research, for my doctoral research was what are these resource gaps that specifically social entrepreneurs face? And there's three main resource gaps and they all are tied together. So, if you're missing one, then you're probably missing the other. Obviously, the first one is we're all struggling with some sort of finances, and a lot of founders specifically, especially if you're in the nonprofit space, believe it or not, are afraid to ask, which is odd because you're in the nonprofit space and you need funding and you have to be in a in a position where you're asking people to join your movement and your mission. I think we feel a little icky about it and what that feels in relationships. And trust me, I have burnt and hurt a lot of relationships. I'm actually in the process of writing another book of that says like how I made you feel like shit, because I want people to understand like I know what I did and I know how I hurt relationships. And we need to be intentional in that when we're fundraising, and that there is someone on the other side that is a person and a human and not just a dollar bill. Right. And so in the process of that, because I think that is going to be an amazing narrative, but it would be financial, those financial resources, something we struggle with. When we struggle with financial, we automatically struggle with our human resources, the people to bring on and to have alongside us to be able to grow. And then when we struggle with that, a lot of the times we are taking on a lot, we're wearing a lot of hats. So we're getting automatically burnt out and we're struggling with our social resources, our social networking, which AKA is your how you get out there and you get your word out there and you build, if you build your networks, you're gonna have more human resources, you're gonna have more funding, but we just get so overwhelmed with it. So what I find with most people, especially when they're starting up, but even in a social impact space, it's a little bit different. It takes you 8 to 10 years, 8 to 10 years to actually grow and be profitable. And I can tell you for a fact, being in the 10th year, that is a very true statistic, being a social impact business. So don't let that discourage you. Just I want you to know it's a long game. And normally when you're running any type of business, it's going to take you 3 to 5 years to be profitable. And it's in those stages that we are really a lot working in crisis management mode. And because we're working in crisis management, we can never get our head above water to be proactive and be working on our business. And if we're consistently going to be working in our business and we can't take the chance or take risk to bring people with us or alongside us, then we will always be stuck and working in our business. And I find a lot of people stuck on that wheel because you have to have some element of risk taking, and that can be scary. I have a risk tolerance quiz that I give out to people to understand their relationship with finances, because we all deal with that a little bit differently. I'm an extreme risk taker. I've taken very, very big risks. In the end, some have been good and some have been really bad, right? So I think it's understanding your intuition, having really good mentors in your corner that you can bounce ideas off of. And I feel a lot of the times people try to do it alone because they feel like no one will understand where they're at. When the truth of the matter is, most of you are at the same spot. And if you started to share your resources, you would actually be able to grow stronger together. And so I'm all about sharing my trade secrets and my resources because I don't want people to struggle with that, along the way.
Man, that's feels so true to what I've experienced, what I see people in the Yellow Coat community experience. All you just articulated it so well. I want to take a minute to talk about our Conscious Collab weekend that we are hosting together in February. And that's partly why I asked you about challenges that you see, because we're going to be diving into a lot of those things throughout this weekend. But tell us a little bit about Conscious Collab weekend. What are we doing, Jenny?
Yeah, man, I give you like over broad challenges. Man, there's so many nitty gritty things we're going to be kind of talking about. But Conscious Collab Weekend. So first of all, any type of conscious collaboration is my heartbeat. I truly believe that talking about strengths, right? We all have our innate talents and our strengths. And when we can collaborate together, magic happens. And that's not just even in a space of, women holding up women. Like that is definitely what we're all about, but across the board, when you are working with people, I have amazing men on our team and leaders. And when you have those talents in place, it's so beautiful to see. But so Conscious Club Weekend, I was actually sharing this in a guidance group. So shout out to guidance groups. And I was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? I need to do this weekend. I've been dreaming about a weekend like this for like 2 years. I'm just going to go for it. And then Joe and I had an amazing conversation after guidance group. But the whole point of Conscious Collab is for you to leave with a conscious collaboration. Whether 1, 2, 3, whatever that might be. I go to a lot of conferences, a lot of events where we get this high, where we get, where we connect, where we're with each other, where we're driving, and it's amazing. And then after, nothing happens. Like we have great intentions, but nothing happens. So when setting up this event with Joe and doing this together, it was like, no, our intention and our purpose is one, for you to think through challenge, come in and know the challenges you're already facing, come in and know what you need, also come in and know what you can give, right? And then we already know how we are going to facilitate conversations. You will not leave the weekend without talking to everyone. That is guaranteed. We know this. So sometimes you go to events and it's like, yeah, I might talk to a couple or like a third of the people or less. No, you will at least have a touch point and a hi. My name is Jenny. My name is Joe. Like you will communicate. We know this. And you will have each other's resources and directory because we want you guys to be able to collaborate together. This is not just for artisan brands. It is focused. I mean, obviously that is my background and expertise, but this is for anybody who is a collaborator with also artisan brands. If you are in marketing, if you are a designer, if you are a copywriter, whatever that is, and you want to specifically work with global social enterprises like Imani Collective or people working around the world, like those people will be in the room. And guess what? They need you as well. They're looking for services too. So this is a place where you guys can come together, and whether that's brand collaboration, it's an artisan brand, another artisan brand doing a really cool product collab, marketing collab, whatever that might be. Or it's like, man, I finally found the service that I need. I finally found that person that knows how to portray my voice on social media, whatever that might be. This is the room that you want to be in. And I'm just excited to bring a lot of people together and like truly see partnership happen and facilitate that. It's kind of a dream of mine. So I'm pumped.
Mm-hmm. One value that both of us share is connection, and just the knowledge that when people get into a space together and can connect with each other and share openly what they're experiencing, what their challenges are, amazing things happen, and things that you'd never be able to predict. Like, oh, so-and-so met this person and they know this, like you just would never be able to predict. So I also am just, obviously by the work that I do, obsessed with getting people in spaces together and watching what happens, because it's
I mean, the reality
awesome.
of like even digital space, right? Like how many relationships that I just have by guidance groups, which has all been virtually, like some of my best friends who I talk to daily, first people I've met in guidance groups who are my accountability partners, people I love that I now go and see when I'm traveling in the States and stuff. But I think if the power of that can happen through a computer like this and in a virtual space, and we can connect in this way, we all know the power of being together is just 10 times, 100 times stronger.
Mm-hmm.
And so good.
Yeah, it really is. It's something that I think a beautiful blessing that the COVID era has brought us is to be able to connect digitally. But I think it's also brought us this gratitude for the in-person space and just how special that is, because we know what it feels like to not be able to have that. So I am so excited for to be able to collaborate with you on this event. Tell everyone where they can find out more about Conscious Collab Weekend, and also where they can connect with you, Jenny.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can go to Conscious Collab Weekend. Is it conscious-collab-weekend.com?
Yep.
I think that's it.
We'll put the link in the show notes as well. So
trust me, we wanted Conscious Collab, whoever has that out there. I'm just giving you a look, but we got Conscious Collab Weekend. And you can go there, you can sign up. If you cannot make it, please reach out to Joe or I. We have really cool resources or ways you can still be a part of the event. If you're like, man, I know some of you who I've talked to and you have like a really important anniversary, plans you've already had, or you have, your sister's having a baby or whatever that might be. We still want you to have the resource in that room. You're going to receive so much by being, if you are in that room, not only in Again, the resource guides we're going to give you, we're going to walk you through some clear visioning and strategy, and you're going to lead with those conscious collaborations. But go to Conscious Collab Weekend, sign up, reach out to us directly, and we can answer those questions. We do not want you to miss it. If you're even having an inkling of that you need to be in that room, please trust your gut on this. When I have not trusted my gut on stuff, I'm like kicking myself for doing that later, or not doing what I should have been doing. So it's going to be really powerful, and we're excited about that. And then how you can find me is easily Jenny Nuccio, nuccio.com. I offer a lot of just fun courses, but also one-on-one mentorship and just walking with you. I love to be available to walk with you. And so I kind of cater my mentorship programs and things like that for you, because I've done strategy builds for people. I've done, help them develop a pitch deck for investment, whatever that might be. I've just been really blessed with a lot of experience and a lot of connections. So my hope is, again, just like we said, our power is connection, is that anytime you interact with me on a service that I provide you, it's like me times 10 people probably, and who you'll be connected to. So you can check out that and have a lot of other fun events going on this year. So, but Conscious Collab is like really launching the year, and I'm so pumped about it.
Amazing. Well, Jenny, thank you so much for being here on the podcast and sharing your story with us, and being who you are and all that you do to equip social entrepreneurs and social good businesses. The world needs you. So thanks for being here. And everyone go check out Conscious Collab Weekend, conscious-collab-weekend.com. Yes. Thanks, Jenny.